Yes, I think we should.
Hi, everyone. We're just waiting a minute to get started. If you can, mute your line when not speaking, that'll help with any background noise. Thank you so much.
I think we should probably go ahead and get started.
Yes, I agree. Stephanie, can we go around and introduce who we are and which tribe we're representing so we can see who's who in the zoo here and who we're still missing?
That would be really wonderful. Yeah, if we can take, just very quickly say who you are, what tribal nation you are here to represent. That would be great. We have a lot of information to share with you, but we certainly want to know who's in the room. Maybe we should start with our presenters to identify who you are as well. Gary, would you like to get us started with an introduction?
So dan we mark ng ska paus ne Sweden tot munu tawat wasa. My name is Gary Zahn, and I'm the director of the Department of Agriculture and Food Systems for Menominee. I'm also the director of our food distribution department. And we participated last year. We were part of the team that started this impetus with Feeding Wisconsin. And by all means, this is something we believe all of our brother and sister tribes need to have also to help your elders and to grow your producers. So thank you all for being on here. So how about Stockbridge, Muncie? Who do we have? After you're done speaking, pass it on.
Okay. Yeah, Joseph Miller, Stockbridge, Muncie, Tribal Council Miller, Tribal Council member. I say Anishi because thank you. And Kulamalse, are you all well? My apologies for the phone. Joe Miller, Stockbridge, Muncie. I'll mute.
Hey there, my name is Kelly Zahn. Also here representing Stockbridge, Muncie. I am the agriculture agent in the agriculture department here for the tribe. So, Jen, you're on my screen, so I'll toss it to you.
I'm Jen Falk, and I work with Gary with Menominee Department of Ag.
Bonjour, everyone. My name is Rosalie Golke. I'm the Tribal Aging and Disability Services Director with Lakota Ray. And I will pass it on to, let me see who's next here on the list. Dan Cornelius.
I'm Dan Cornelius, Intertribal Ag Council. I'm going to pass it to Jeff Jocelyn.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Jocelyn. I am the Director of Food Resources for Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin. Our team has led the procurement process for the tribal elder food boxes both last year and will be doing the same this year. I am going to pass it to Marlon.
Good week, everybody. Marlon Skenador. I'm the manager of Oneida Nation Emergency Food Pantry.
And I'm one of the main distributors here, the distributor coordinator here for Oneida whenever we're distributing the elder boxes. I'll pass it to Lauren as the only one that I don't know.
Morning. My name is Lauren. I am the program coordinator here at Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin. And I will pass it to, did Laura go yet?
No. Bonjour, I'm Laura Miranda. I'm with Bad River. I am the Sustainable Business Specialist. And I will pass it to Cassie.
Cassie, I'm from Feeding, I can't. I'm Cassie, I'm from Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin. I'm the Director of Community and Government Relations. I will pass it to, did Philomena go yet?
I have not. Hi, Bonjour, Indinaway Maniduk. This is Philomena, Quebec. I'm with Bad River. I'm the Economic Development Coordinator here. I will pass it to Dave Cronauer.
Dave Cronauer, Forest County, Potawatomi. I'm the farm manager. And I have no clue who's left.
Let's go to John Greendeer.
Good morning, everyone. John Greendeer. I'm in transit right now. I'm off the ceremonies to pray for you sinners, and I'm the health and wellness coordinator for the Ho-Chunk Nation. So good morning, everyone.
Tim Farley.
I'm Tim Farley. I'm with Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin. I'm the Purchasing and Government Commodities Manager here. Just help me source the food for the boxes.
Amy, I'm sorry, did you give an introduction? I know you had started us off.
Oh, thanks, Dan. Amy Minen, UW-Madison School of Community Ecology and the Health Tide Network.
And I know we've got a couple of phone numbers that are calling in. If people haven't introduced yourself, if you want to just jump in, that would be great.
I don't think A. Bochard had, I don't know the first name of that person, but I don't believe we have an introduction from you. And there's a 715-588-4204. Feel free to jump in. You can unmute yourself by pressing *6. Oh, and is the food Stav? I don't know who's behind that screen, but I don't know if we've had an introduction from that person either. All right, well, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. Feel free to jump in if you haven't introduced yourself. I'm Stephanie Young-Dorfman. I'm the Executive Director of Feeding Wisconsin. We're the state association of our 6 Feeding America affiliated food banks. And we have been a partner in program management and implementation of the tribal elder boxes, trying to build the connections between producers, the aggregation partner that we have, and distribution on to tribal nations. So we're excited to be here in conversation once again to plan for the 2022 season. It looks like we've had somebody here from Bad River, Loretta, Livingston, whose audio isn't working. I apologize for audio complications. Thanks for adding that to the chat. So thank you all for being here. I'm going to hand it over to Gary once again to kick us off, and then we'll do some rotating, a brief presentation, and then take any questions or conversation that you all would like to have. Oh, Gary, you're muted. Thank you.
You think after 2 years I would, anyways, when we started this last year, we really were getting food boxes and we were getting food. Remember, there was food coming in after we had the pandemic start and the schools closed, restaurants closed. So USDA and other funding sources said the food can't spoil in the field. We've got to purchase it. We've got to get it out to people who are now needing it because they're not having their schools their kids are not getting lunches and people can't go to restaurants. So they started the food boxes. In doing that, we were very appreciative and we were getting food boxes. But what we found is there were processed foods. There were other foods that our elders, we know, could not eat. And we all know all of the health indicators that are in there. So we approached, Stephanie was one of those, Feeding Wisconsin, and Amy, and we said, we really need to look at under the whole lens of food as medicine. We need food that our elders can eat. They're dropping like flies in this pandemic. That we've got to build them up. How can we do that? How does that work? Luckily enough, Amy then and Stephanie found a potential funding source for us through Feeding America that we then applied for. And as we did this, we found we had access to foods now, to healthy foods. And we started with Oneida, Menominee, and Red Cliff as the first three. We additionally tried to add in other tribes, but we were limited to 400, was it 70 something thousand or 420 something thousand? I forget now, I'm working with a bunch of grants. But we had the funding, and you'll see how we used most of that funding. And we're trying to not only feed appropriately the food to our elders, and all the details of those come in later, but we also were purchasing as much as we can from tribal producers, as much as we can. We're trying to grow them. And you'll see that in these slides that it worked for what we did, but we found out we also needed more producers, more tribal ranchers, fishermen, producers. So we finished the first year, and now we have additional funding. We've more than doubled what that funding would be for this coming year. And the intent was to grow this. At some point in time, we want to be able to support enough of the food producers and then understand enough of the food chain that tribes can look at those old school trade routes to really start looking at a type of indigenous food hub, or eventually an intertribal agricultural cooperative. And these are pieces of that. And that's what we are looking at. So you'll get a lot of detail through this, and you can see the people sitting on here, some of the presenters today, they're educating us on some of this. We've been able to grow things and to look at permaculture and other ways, and we've survived, good 14, 15,000 years, but we've not used this type of system, and we need to learn this. and we really have to get the whole modern food system down. So Stephanie, thank you for helping Jeff, everybody on this call. This is what we're working towards. And right now we want you, if you do not have those food producers or ranchers on your reservations or membership who are, at the very least, we want you to participate in some form or fashion with taking some of this food and distributing it to your membership. And you'll see that as we go through here. The intent is to include as many of our sister tribes as we can. So thank you. And for those who are not on here, feel free to share this. This isn't the last call that we would be having, or this last attempt to see who we get in, although timing is getting close to when the distributions will start to happen and we have to get our logistics down. So if there are tribes that you know are not on this call, feel free to let them know that they should get in contact with us. So Maxwell and everyone for being here. This is taking care of our relatives, and we appreciate you stepping up to the plate to hear this. Moanan.
So thank you for joining us. From a procurement side of things, we had an intentionality with the first year where we wanted to support we made a decision tree basically that we would source product first from indigenous producers, and what we could not provide through indigenous sources, we would have criteria such as local, organically or naturally grown, for what, when we would work our way backwards from that. So we would go from local to regional. So, looking at partners that were within the Wisconsin region rather than Wisconsin specifically. And last case resort would be sort of national or global, right? So we're trying to keep things as close to the communities as we're serving as we possibly can. And with that, we very intentionally spoke to many producers and tried to make the right size fit between what the producers could produce and the number of boxes that we needed to fulfill. And we learned quickly that there was a lot of work to do in that. And it's the logistics behind getting products grown, packaged, and distributed on a bi-weekly basis in the quantities that we were looking at were very difficult, but we were able to overall, over the course of the season, make boxes that were really valued by the communities, by the elders that received them. The first year, the grant that we had received restricted the products that we could send out to only fresh and perishable products. So fresh meats, they could be frozen, but not any further processed. Fresh produce, but we had to limit our boxes to not have things like wild rice or dried corn, things like that, maple syrup. We were able to include some of those items with additional grant funding, but overall, the majority of the products were those fresh and perishables. For this season and for additional opportunities that may come, we really want to be able to open that up into including more of those healthy products that are, maybe dried, smoked, somehow preserved in other ways, still minimally processed whenever possible, but that are representative of the traditional foods that the tribes would love to see. So that was the strategy behind how we source the products. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Tim for the next slide, please.
So the pilot program for 2021, the original grant was $427,800 from Feeding America's national office. And I believe this year, if I'm not mistaken, we're already close to 1.2 million for the next box with the different funding we have now. For the pilot, it was 7 different tribes that boxes were distributed to, 900 boxes, and those were done every other week from June to December. Jeff touched on this, but yeah, all partners work together to make the decisions around all the purchasing and aggregation, repack logistics and distribution. And it was the tribal elders themselves that let us know what their preferences were in regards to the food. For 2021, it was 41% of all the products purchased for the boxes were purchased from indigenous growers. And then I don't know who was coming after me, but that was, thanks.
That's me again. So the overall, we did 192,000 pounds of produce in that first year. And that was really primarily with seasonal produce that was local. And so things like berries, onions, potatoes, squash, apples, sweet corn was really successful. So we had a really good mix of things. And in the process, we also learned a few things that were sort of clunkers that weren't the best options. Eggplant comes to mind as something that, we took the feedback and we realized that, okay, there are things that may not work as well as others. So, but proteins, we were able to source 21,000 pounds of protein and spread that across local indigenously produced beef, fish, and buffalo, pork, elk, chicken, and eggs. And so we were very intentional, again, in trying to find products that were not only indigenously grown, but that would be traditional and widely supported by the tribal elders. And I'll pass it to the next slide, please.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. And I just wanted to point out in this picture, I hope you can see it, might not be super clear, but we have some beautiful Oneida Orchard apples in there and hydroponic lettuce that got so many compliments throughout the season last year from Dave Cronauer of Forest County Potawatomi. I think you can see tucked away in there some maple syrup and wild rice that we sourced from Spirit Lake in northern Minnesota, and plenty of other produce that we sourced locally as well. So just really exciting contents of these boxes across the season. So again, we're super excited to grow this program in the coming year. In 2022, we have funding from 2 different sources. We're actually still waiting to hear back from the Feeding America National Grant, which is what ended up piloting the program for us last year. But we've also set aside $1 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds that Feeding Wisconsin was awarded from DATCAP. So that will cover food and infrastructure costs. In 2021, about 86% of the expenses that we had for the program was going towards food. So it was the actual purchase of food products, and we kept costs of transportation and repack pretty low. And we plan to do the same this year. We plan to pack 1,800 boxes every 2 weeks. And this, again, as Jeff mentioned, will be an expanded variety of products. So we will continue to have proteins and produce, but also we're exploring a lot of non-perishable items such as wild rice, honey, maple syrup, hominy corn, and teas and herbs and all sorts of other things that we've been in conversation with some indigenous and non-indigenous local growers and producers. We plan to distribute over 16 distributions between May 12th and December 2nd. Product, again, will be sourced from indigenous and non-indigenous local producers. We'll be partnering with the Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative in Wapaka to have all food from the growers and producers delivered on site to then be repacked by volunteers into household portion boxes. And that will happen on Wednesdays. So producers will have to drop off their food on Mondays or Tuesdays. The repack will happen on Wednesdays, and then the Wisconsin Food Hub Cooperative will deliver to tribal distributions on the following Thursdays and Fridays to ensure that product is moving quickly. We don't want to sit on the fresh and perishable items very long. We want that to get out to elders for consumption as quickly as we can. So you can see in that picture there, that's what the repack looks like. Those volunteers, going box by box, getting that product in. So just for your logistical information, we've packaged in the boxes the produce, and I anticipate any non-perishables will go right into that box and be in the cooler. So it'll be a cooler box. And then typically the contents of the proteins, it's a freezer. Usually they're freezer items. Usually the proteins have been frozen. So we usually distribute that in separate pallets of just cases of the proteins, then to be distributed on site to elders. So we haven't mixed the frozen and cooler items. So that will be the same case to come in this coming years. We'll have boxes of the cooler and non-perishables, and then on the side, the proteins. So if we have 2 different proteins that week, then it would be up to you if you want to hand those out separately or have your own volunteers on site bag those 2 proteins into a bag to make it easier on you at the distribution point. I will hand it over to Dan.
So as Gary had really mentioned at the beginning, this project, to me, we want boxes, we want food going out that's going to be food that the elders like and enjoy. And so how we did that was, really working with the food distribution directors trying to really get a sense of what people were going to want. And we kind of had an idea as well. And we knew probably that the kohlrabi maybe wouldn't go as well as, as berries or some of the other items, but to really give that opportunity for more feedback, we did a recipient survey, and you can see here just some of, as has already been mentioned, a lot of great feedback over the aquaponic lettuce from Forest County, the apple, sweet corn, watermelons, and proteins. Of course, people liked the maple syrup and wild rice, but I think it was helpful to put out the survey and to really get some more information. I know a lot of us were talking with elders who are getting boxes throughout the process, and I think one of the big things that really came out was that sometimes there's kind of stigmas or attached to receiving food assistance, and that this one, because there wasn't an income requirement that was included with it, that I think that helped to remove some of that stigma. But we definitely heard that this helped to really stretch the pocketbook for a lot of elders, and make more of high quality, healthy foods available. This is really important as we move forward of what do we continue to do to really get that mix of product that they're going to enjoy, but also how do we continue to reach out and work more with our tribal producers. And that's another key piece of this is really supporting building our intertribal distribution systems, partnerships, and really strengthening that intertribal food system as we try to work toward a regional intertribal cooperative. We'll move on to the next slide. And you can see here just some of the quotes of that, the direct feedback from our elders.
Gary, I think this is your slide. Any other commentary that you'd like to make?
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought we were letting people read it partly. But yeah, the whole attempt was to make sure not only to remove that stigma. Our elders did say that. They said, well, it isn't that feeling that you're low income or you're receiving kamats, because sometimes there's a stigma to that. What this was our way of respecting and appreciating our elders, and all of us knew that. And this was a way of showing that. And we most definitely got that from the membership. A lot of them come back and we know with the food they get, they end up giving it to their family or cooking it, with whoever they're caretaking at that time. But we wanted to make sure they had foods they liked, they knew how to cook, and we knew through this we were going with that the idea that the food would be we would not have to worry about having food that had glyphosate or some of the other herbicides and pesticides. As much as we could stay away from them, and with our tribal producers, we knew how they were raising and what they were putting into those foods. So as you heard Jeff say, we went from tribal food producers to regional food producers. So if there are local non-natives around you, we wanted to help support them and get food from them if we know they were doing it in a green, sustainable way also. We don't want them going out of business. We want to create those relationships with them. And if we still could not find that food, then we asked Jeff, Janice, and Food Hub, we asked them, can you find others then to fill that gap? Because you also have a source, a food source outside of what we know. So we made sure that we got the good types of food that people could eat. We have a lot of lactose intolerant natives, we all know that, besides everything else that's going on. So this was great. And you see these quotes. We've found that our food distribution program also is growing with our 638. And we see this, we're getting good foods from the many different sources, and from trying to really build under that whole concept of food as medicine. And it's helping our food distribution program. And it's also making sure that our elders through this program have good food. We may or may not, Dan, I don't know if we will later, talk about some of the alternatives to the local food purchasing agreement that may or may not relate to this. That I imagine that can be later, because we're just talking about this food box now. But if you can read these quotes, there's an ethical responsibility that if you can give these types of foods out and help your elders, I think the quotes speak for themselves. We should do that. Now, so move on.
So now I'm wondering, Marlon, if you could speak a little bit to the role that you played in distributing this food, and kind of the partnership that we've had to build the tribal elder box to support elders at Oneida.
Yeah, it's kind of tough where to start. So I'll start with something similar to the tribal elder food box when the pandemic dropped, was the farmers to family food boxes. We started off with those having no clue what we were doing, and we got a whole semi-load. Our first one, we actually unpacked case by case by hand, and it was like 1,100 boxes, and we were worn out. So whenever you're distributing boxes, you want to really analyze all the steps to it to create more efficiencies. Because I'll tell you what, if we had to unpack boxes like that, I would have probably gave up. So we always want to look at how we distribute, always be open-minded. There's a couple steps. It's definitely you want to get a group of volunteers, some dedicated volunteers. I had BC business committee members that would come help me. People were just showing up because they heard about it. And then also employees that were lending, their supervisors were giving them time to come and help us and assist. So that was really helpful. But it's absolutely, it's very empowering to be there right on the front lines, distributing the food directly to them and feeling the gratitude that's coming from the elders. And what, speaking to Dan with the stigmas, me being in my position for 5 years, coming up on 5 years, running a program that doesn't have income guidelines, that you are eligible as a Oneida Nation member, no matter what. People flock here sometimes, you know, it's easy, it's accessible. You're here for 10 minutes, you can sign up. So I'm breaking down those stigma is great. My thing has always just been, let's get good food to the community at any measure. So it's always worth to put in the time, the effort. So definitely gathering up volunteers. And once you get somebody out there, you can feel it, you know, it's a very great feeling for your volunteers. And that's what keeps them coming back, because you can see the gratitude from the elders. So always be listening whenever you're first starting off. You always want to listen to your volunteers, because I've gotten so many great ideas from, what if we can do this a little easier? We can do that a little better. So always constantly analyzing how you can make it better from distribution to distribution. So by the time that we started doing the elder boxes, I already had a finely tuned machine of workers, volunteers that, you know, I would just have to store the food, make sure the food's available, gather the proteins. So there's a lot that goes into it, but after you get them going, they kind of just run themselves. So once I got everything set up, the volunteers would just run it, and I can just watch, see where we're at. Do they need more food, another pallets? So looking at equipment, what do you have now? Even if an electric pallet jack, you know, you don't have to have a forklift, but if you had an electric pallet jack, so assessing what you have, but it's all worth the work, you know, and just getting that good food into the community. I'm excited. Everybody, you know, people have been asking me, when are they starting back up? So it's a great thing. It's a great thing to be a part of, and working with everybody on this call here. You know, I've learned so much, evaluating different things, getting new perspectives. So it's a great group to work with. And I've appreciated the ride, and it's just awesome that we're continuing on. And I foresee this program going on for a lot longer than any of us imagined, I think. So I'll just share that much and pass it on.
Thank you, Marlon. All right, so next up is I want to share a little information about how to become a distribution partner. So how to get these boxes to your tribe, to get to your elders. There's some information that I'll need. So like I said, we'll have 1,800 boxes every distribution. So I'm taking in all of this information from tribal nations interested in distributing boxes, and we likely won't be able to have, you know, enough boxes for everyone in this coming year, but we're going to try our best. So I'm interested in first maybe having an offline conversation with each tribal nation to know if you're interested and talk through some logistics. And then we'll need to know how many boxes you would ideally need to serve your elders, how often you'd like to distribute, whether that's monthly or bi-weekly. I'm imagining that we have a core number of tribal nations that we do serve on a bi-weekly basis, and then a good number that we serve on a monthly basis, just based on your needs and logistics. So I think we'll be able to make that work in different ways. We'll need to know information like where you'd like this product dropped off and where it would be delivered. We'll be working on an outreach flyer that we hope that you'd be able to use to give a heads up to elders in your community. And some information that we'll need to know is what site should they come to and when you'd be distributing. So we'll be working out logistics of when this product would be dropped off. I'm trying to remember, I think it is Menominee that receives products Thursday morning and distributes Thursday afternoon. So there's a really quick turnaround on that. And Oneida, Marlon, you distribute on Fridays, right? Am I mixing
Yeah,
that up?
that's correct. We would
Yeah.
usually, we would get the boxes on Thursday, store them for the day, and then get started at 10 o'clock in the morning the next day.
Yeah. So depending on your storage capacity, if you have cold storage, you could do something like that Marlon does, or we'd have to make sure that it's not a super tight turnaround between delivery in case a truck's delayed and your distribution time, but it could also be same day. And that would allow for products to get out the door as quickly as it could be to folks
Yes.
to consume.
Tiffany, you're right. Menominee had received the boxes on Thursday, and with our population, you know, in a bigger reservation, we initially said Thursdays were for on reservation elders, and we went with a 55 years and older as that determiner for what the quote unquote elder is. And our food distribution departments really know if there are a married couple and they're both 60 years old or whatever, that at least initially when we started, we said, well, let's try one elder box per household. And if there are other boxes available, well, then you can come in. And our elders are pretty good at following whatever those regs are. They just work that way. So Thursday we did on-res individuals. On Fridays, we said anyone who lives off reservation can come in and pick up the boxes. And if there were other boxes left over or certain boxes we initially just set aside, we would take to some of the more rural elders that we know couldn't travel or had other kind of reasons why they couldn't pick them up. So we would deliver those then either Thursday or Monday morning. So the system works. We would need you to think through some of those types of things that I talked about, and you heard Marlon and Stephanie talk about in creating that number. And sometimes the elders, and we know they don't eat a heck of a lot. So sometimes they were saying, you know, we even had them saying, oh, no, I don't need any more meat right now. I'll leave it for somebody else and I'll come, but I'll still take all of the vegetables. They're pretty good at being honest about stuff, and they'll let you know. But typically, you need to develop what that process is, and the food distribution locations typically work best for everybody. So thank you.
I just want to add, can I add something real quick?
Absolutely.
So the further you go along, the more ideas you come up with as you go along. So we actually started working with our elder services department, the outreach workers specifically. So they were picking up 25 boxes to deliver Friday morning before we even started the distribution. So that way you're getting to those homebound elders that may not be able to get there. So you got to think creatively, and you know, just recruiting extra helpers is where it's at.
If I may, this is Joe Miller from Stockbridge. Yeah, we would go up every other Thursday to Menominee and pick up, I believe it was 125 boxes. And then we would bring them down to Stockbridge and distribute them to our elder folks. Some things that were mentioned that I wholeheartedly agree with, our elders that live in little small apartments, and in little small apartment size refrigerator freezers. Yes, some of them were running into that exact same thing where they were saying, well, we don't have any place to fit it in our house, so we will forego. So that was something. We do have capacity at Stockbridge Muncie with our food distribution program, walk-in coolers, walk-in freezers. I would say that if possible, to be a distribution site, we would have that capacity. However, if distribution is an issue and we don't want to cause any heartburn, if our dollars or money is revenues for distribution, we would not want to hinder that process. So we were totally fine and very appreciative, even just to drive from here up to Menominee to pick those boxes up. That was not an issue at all. We gladly did it. And overall, the community, I can't express how appreciative our folks were for that distribution. Our family service program here, which I'm part of, we were the staff that did the distributions every other Thursday. I remember early on, very early on, we even drove up to Lac du Flambeau to pick up. I don't know if it was this program, but there was a program in place. We'd even drive all the way to Lac du Flambeau to pick up boxes and bring them back down. So I just want to say on behalf of Stockbridge Muncie, initially, we were very much interested in continuing this partnership, becoming part of it, and in any way, shape, or form, how we can assist other communities. Please, then we'll get our leaders together and roundtable that so we can assist you all. And to the program people, I say, Anishik, again, thank you. I mean, these small communities out here are very appreciative for what we got. I know there were some things mentioned, some specific items. I kind of, when you said maple syrup, I would imagine the demand outweighs the supply. You probably got an issue there. But once again, those certain little things like that, and the meats, the frozen meats, and then early on also when we did have the processed food, we did notice that same issue with maybe high sodium. So some of our nutritional issues that our old folks have, but however, still very appreciative, and we made things work. So I would say that with other people in the program here at our food distribution and family services who were unavailable to sit in today, that's why they told me, they voluntold me to, and Gary voluntold me to participate here, my brother from another mother. So we can't express our appreciation enough, and wish to continue and also assist in any way, shape, or form Stockbridge Muncie can. I see Kelly, our egg aide, Kelly Zahn. She's our producer here, and by golly, that she's meant the world to this community and the things she's been able to accomplish. So I wanted to give a hats off there and our farm that she has created. So with that in mind, I'll pass it on. And yeah, Rose, good to see you again, Rose. And all my other Native brothers and sisters and non-Native brothers and sisters who I've just made a relationship with today. Adishik, thank you.
Thank you. So thank you for that. I'm excited to hear of the excitement that you have to continue to participate. The last couple of things that I'll need from you, so we'll follow up with an email of kind of some of these questions that we have if you're interested in participating. You'll also need a program agreement or membership with one of our Feeding Wisconsin Network food banks. That just very basically, it says that you agree to distribute these food boxes at no charge to the consumer. You won't request that they volunteer in exchange for the food or pay for them or any other thing like that. And it also just touches on food safety, just to make sure that we're safely handling and distributing food down the distribution process. So that would be, I think, with the folks in this room. Feeding America Eastern Wisconsin, Second Harvest Southern Wisconsin, Second Harvest Northern Lakes, and I think Feed My People of those I heard present today. So if you don't have one of those signed, it's a very simple program agreement, and I'd be happy to build a connection between the food bank staff and yourself. There was a question, I think, building off of the way that this has been done in the past, there certainly has been situations where food distribution programs, the emergency food pantry is the one distributing these boxes, but there are other examples, as was just mentioned. I know Forest County Potawatomi did the same, where it wasn't a pantry or the food distribution program of the tribe that distributed it, and there's no requirement that it has to be that program. If there's a way that makes more sense, if it's part of the agency, I'm sorry, what was it called, the aging department or something along those lines, that would work just fine. So we can make that work with whatever makes most sense for your tribe. So those are some of the basic questions that we'll need to answer in order to make sure that we include you in the program. And then before we jump into any other questions, I just wanted to hand it over to Jeff to talk about how producers can also be partners. So we have more information about that on our website, but just to touch on that briefly here, I'll hand it over to Jeff.
Thank you. So we are still soliciting producers for this year's program. And in order to be a partner, again, it's a fairly straightforward process. We have a MOU that basically outlines what we need as the procurement team, what the expectations are, and what you can expect as a producer, the producers that you are referring to us can expect. We try to understand seasonally what types of crops you might be growing, and what other products would be available. And then on a distribution by distribution basis, we compile, what is available at that time in order to make the final determination on the boxes. So there is additional resources, and our team is always very happy to work with whomever is interested in working with us. So we do really try to, at this point, we're still trying to get a full 1,800 units of product, whatever that would be, in order to fulfill that on a weekly basis. But we do have an opportunity to sort of split things out over time. So if we're doing something like maple syrup, that we can only get 900 units one week, but we might be able to get another 900 in the following weeks, we can work out those types of details as well. So we can email out this information to whomever needs it. I saw someone in the chat had asked that question. We're happy to send that information along to you.
Okay, so I'll open it up to any questions that folks might have. I know we're running a little bit short on time, but I certainly want to make sure that we take the time to answer any questions that folks have on the program.
Yeah, this is Joe again, and you mentioned that just an email came with everybody, all the participants together. That's the best, fastest, easiest way of communications, and then we can forward that to our people. So that would be greatly appreciated, so we can stay in contact. And yes, we have our food distribution manager there. She's a drill sergeant when it comes to safety, so on and so forth. We had one little item hit the floor, and at my house, I got a 10-minute rule, but at her house, she said, no, absolutely not. Thank you. That would be the only request from Stockbridge Muncie is, as I see here now, the email chain. Thank you.
I will follow up by email probably on Monday once we have the recording of this downloaded and uploaded to YouTube. We will get information out to you all, the recording, the slide deck, and then I'll also bullet point some of the next steps that will be needed in the body of the email.
Dan, did you have any follow-up comment?
Yeah, I think at least a couple or a few folks from this call were also on a call we had on Wednesday with the Wisconsin Ag Department. There's a major funding opportunity open right now, the Local Food Purchase Assistance Cooperative Agreement, LFPA, we just call it for short. It's a pretty long title. USDA's got $410 million that they're putting out, and at least 4.9 million is coming to Wisconsin. 40% of that's reserved for tribes. The state and tribal governments are eligible to apply. And really, we're looking at this effort here to try to build these intertribal partnerships, connections, food system, ultimately moving toward a cooperative. So we're working on putting a concept together for a Great Lakes Intertribal Food Consortium for any tribes that may be interested. Maybe you're interested in that program, but don't want to take it all on yourself, or maybe you want to take on some, but wanted to continue this type of a project moving forward. So we're working actively on that. Anybody who's interested now, we can loop you in, as we're putting this initial concept together, but we want your input on it if you are interested.
I have a question about the food boxes, so I know where it's coming from, right? So we just started, we became involved with the Hunger Relief Federation of Wisconsin. How is that connected to what you're doing here?
Hunger Relief Federation is an entity of Hunger Task Force in Milwaukee. They're a food bank that's independent of our networks. They are separate. They're two different networks providing food to food pantries, meal sites, tribal nations across the state.
Okay, so we're doing the shelf stable right now, but we will begin doing the Badger food boxes as well. Those are open to any tribal member or community member. But we are interested, I know that we're interested in the elder food boxes, the ones that you're talking about. I'd be interested in finding out a little bit more information to present to our tribal governing board for their approval. Our elders in our community are already on fixed incomes, and I know that this would help them greatly, but I agree with you, Joel, that a lot of our elders, they have a problem storing food in a small apartment. A lot of them want freezers. So that's something that our tribal governing board needs to look at. If they can assist some way in getting them a freezer to store some of the food, the frozen foods. But I think it's ideal if we work through our food distribution programs to store those appropriately until they are picked up or delivered. Thank you for the great presentation today.
Yeah, and I'll share that the boxes are about 20 pounds of food. Typically, we've included 2 proteins, around a pound each. So that might be a pound of ground bison or ground beef or some pork chops. It's been, so not a huge amount, but if you're receiving that every 2 weeks and not using that quickly, it could add up for freezer products.
Right, and Stephanie, that's where we looked at the option of accepting the boxes once a month as opposed to every other week. So the options are built in if that's a concern.
Certainly.
So this basically won't cost the tribe anything. We just enter into an agreement. We let you know the number of elders that we want boxes for. And do they need to fill out paperwork initially?
There's no paperwork involved on your ends at all. Nope, it is free of charge to the tribal nations and to elders. And we certainly would want to make sure that we try to get you on a route so you're not, I appreciate Stockbridge making the effort to drive to pick up boxes, but we'll certainly try to get the boxes directly to you.
Yeah, and Rose, initially for the first 1 or 2 times we did it, Menominee, we had a listing of our tribal members. We just got it from enrollment and it had the ages, or we asked for the ages of those 55 and older. So we would have the ability to go scroll through that booklet then and check those off to make sure. Most of them, but some of them, it's good to have that so you at least have some documentation in case membership mentions anything.
So Gary, are you doing service area or basically reservation boundaries only?
Now, the first day we did trot on reservation. And the second day, then it was basically service area because no one's driving from California to come get a box, no tribal member. But those from the local area that drive in, then they are allowed to take the box again with that set aside for the homebound.
So Stephanie, in regards to the number of boxes, say we only take 100 boxes the first time, right? And then we have an increased demand. So it's going to be first come, first serve. Those elders 55 and older. What if we the next month we need more?
That'll be an ongoing discussion. The only way that will work is if others need less. So I think if you start with 100, I think that probably sounds, like it could be potentially a good amount, and then we can work from there. We did some of that fluctuating over the course of the last season, where some tribal nations said that, oh, we can take 40 less, and some said I could use 40 more. And I think we just want to make sure that they're not going to waste. And we do have a limited number of them. John.
Good afternoon. In regards to that, when we initialize a program like this, are we going to be going based on our statistical elder population, or are we going to go on a projected number we think we can distribute? So what would qualify, and then if we go with the first based on our elder population and we are able to distribute 60% of those, what happens to the 40% or any surplus that we might have?
Yeah, so I would encourage you to consider how many boxes you could distribute. So while you might have a larger number of elders, but some of which you don't believe would come to pick up the boxes, then I think your estimates should be an estimate of how many boxes you think you could distribute. Again, we'll have 1,800 every 2 weeks. So there's gonna be some negotiation involved in making sure that we're getting a substantial number of boxes to every tribe, but it may not serve all members. I do know some of the questions about identifying members to receive the boxes. I know Oneida did ask for tribal IDs at the beginning of the distribution, and that worked for them. There's no requirement to do these things, but the intent is that this is going to tribal elders 55 and older based on and your requirements from there. If you're making decisions about geographic area or any other things, those are up to you to decide. John.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Marlon.
Okay. Just wanted to respond, to Rosalie as well. Like we were doing anybody, they didn't have to be Oneida. We had Menominees coming through our line. That way we could specifically see if they were tribal or not. And we had people from all over the place come through the line because it just doesn't make sense to drive all the way up north to get one. We didn't necessarily market it like that. We just market on Facebook. Just bring your tribal ID. We keep it simple as that. And then, we just went with a number. Like, I don't even know how we came up with the number. I can get rid of 400 easy. And we do turn some people away, but we have a nice stock where we at least give them an item if they come, if we ran out of boxes. Because sometimes you end up with extra proteins. So then we would pass out the extra proteins to people that didn't get in the line, just as long as they were leaving with something.
Right, and John, that was that point then that whatever we start with, if we find out that we have leftover boxes, that's where we got on the phone and said, Stockbridge, Muncie, or whomever, we'd call a tribe and say, hey, you can use these boxes, I'm sure. And they'd say, you better believe it. So we would deliver or they would pick up, but we would make sure that the food was not wasted, that that it was all between tribes that we shared, if that was the case. So whatever number comes first, you learn from that, and it can fluctuate.
Yeah, I just don't want to fall short with my people, because you know how that is.
Yes.
John, do me a favor, keep your eyes on the road. No, Gary and everybody at Stockbridge Muncie, I can't make any commitments right now, but in our initial discussion of once we get our things in line, it may turn out to be once a month for us. So if that frees up, somebody some distribution for others, then we're certainly mindful and cognizant of that. So, and it is now time my stomach tells me it's time for me to bow out here. But once again, thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. And John, safe travels.
And also what's in the boxes will create the demand as well. Whatever's in that box. If it's like when we put the maple syrup in there, boom, those boxes we have 400 boxes, 360 boxes gone in an hour and 15 minutes.
That's why we don't advertise.
Exactly.
We don't advertise. People coming through the line and they'll ask, well, what's in it? Well, when you take it home and open it up, you'll find out what's in it. Yeah, we're kind of strict to that regard here. Okay, guys, thank you.
Yep. Thank you, everyone. Like I said, I'll follow up as soon as this recording is ready to go. So we'll email the list of folks that received this invite and ask any next steps of you. And hopefully some of this information will help you have those conversations you need to have with leadership to make the decision. So please let us know if there's anything else that you need beyond that. But we look forward to having some one-on-one conversations to make some decisions to finalize the plan for this coming season. Thank you all.
And my final point would be, remember Dan talked about the local food purchasing agreement funding. So please let us know if you are interested, and we will get back to you. Contact parts of the team here, Dan for sure, or myself, and then we'll see if we can't set up a time when we can formulate again on how that might come together. Thank you, everybody.
I have one more question. One more question, if I could ask it. When is the agreement deadline? When do we have to have that information to you, Stephanie?
Oh, that's a really good question. Well, our first distribution is mid-May, so I feel like we should have some decisions made by mid-April. So if we could have plans set, at least some agreement, some sense of who will be getting the boxes, so we can start figuring out the transport routes by, I'd say, April 8th at the very latest. I would push for an April 1st deadline. That's a great
probably
question.
Get the information out to those of us that aren't part of this right now, because we're going to have to act quickly to get our councils, our governing boards on board and get that agreement in place. So I would get that sent out sooner than later with some basic information, so it's not too overwhelming for them, because they're all busy folks. Make it sweet and to the point, and let's get moving forward. And then I would also put in there a recommendation that these are best handled through food distribution programs that already have the storage, the cool storage that we need. That's what I would ask for, or any other facility that has that. We don't have that here at our Aging and Disability Services Department, because of course we have food that we're going to serving for our nutrition meals, so we're limited on storage space right now. We can do the shelf stable fine. We can do the Badger boxes that are going to go, they're going to go pretty quick. We're going to put that on the radio, and we know that we're only getting 98 of those boxes, and they're open to anyone in the community. Those are going to go pretty quickly, but we can't handle storage of these other ones in our facility here, although we'd love to. We'd love to do that. We just don't have that capacity right now.
So I will also share that I understand the decision goes hand in hand, but the agreement with the food bank, that needs to happen. But then also all this information about, I think if you had the information about the number of boxes, the distribution site and those kind of things, sooner than later, the agreement can come after. But I will, Rosalie, I think your food bank would be Feed My People. So I can connect you directly to Feed My People. We can build those connections too. Any other last thoughts or questions?
Thank you all.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you all.